Hey everyone, before we dive in, if you love stories that hit you right in the feels, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss one. All right, let's get into it. I used to believe the absolute worst thing that could happen in a single day was getting a flat tire while already racing late to an important meeting. Turns out the real worst thing is dragging yourself home at twilight, completely drained, aching for the one person who's supposed to make the whole world feel safe, only to hear him say the words that shatter everything. It was one of those dreary October evenings in northern Colorado when the mountains look purple and battered, and the air carries that sharp hint of snow that's still holding off. I'd spent the day putting out one crisis after another at work, then crawled through traffic while some guy yelled at me over speakerphone about figures I never touched. By the time I pulled onto our quiet street in Fort Collins, all I wanted was a big glass of wine, Ryan's arms around me, and the comforting illusion that tomorrow would be gentler. Lauren's white SUV was parked sideways across our driveway like she'd been living there forever. My sister-in-law never warmed up to me, and I gave up trying to fix that a long time ago. I parked a couple houses down, grabbed the grocery bag with the bottle I'd promised myself as a reward, and trudged back through the chill. Inside, the house smelled like that cinnamon candle Ryan always teases me for burning. I heard Lauren's laugh first, low, smug, satisfied. Then Ryan's voice, relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't heard aimed at me in forever. God, she has no clue, he said. Claire stopped by at lunch. 3 times today, babe. 3. My keys slipped from my hand and clattered onto the tile with a sound that still echoes in my head. Lauren cracked some joke about endurance. Ryan laughed again. That same easy laugh he used to save for lazy Sunday mornings when we had nowhere to be. Then he said the line that froze every drop of blood in my body. Community property state, remember? I file. I walk away with half of everything. The trust fund, the investments, all of it. She earned it. I cash out. Claire's already house hunting in Arizona. I stood frozen in the dark hallway, clutching a bottle of cheap Cabernet, like it was the only thing keeping me upright. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of me working late nights so he could find himself after his startup crashed and burned. 3 years of me pretending the growing distance was just temporary, that our bedroom going cold was only stress, that his late nights were really client drinks. I backed out the front door without making a sound, eased it shut until the latch clicked, and walked to my car. The engine roared too loud in the silent neighborhood. I sat there staring at our cute brick house with the navy shutters I'd picked out myself and realized I was already gone. My parents died when I was 25. Small plane crash. Everyone told me how lucky I was that the trust was bulletproof, that I'd never have to worry about money. I never felt lucky. I just felt empty. Ryan showed up a year later with soft hands and bigger promises, and I let him in because being chosen felt like breathing again. I should have remembered air can be taken away just as easily. That night, I drove straight to Ellie's condo downtown. She opened the door in tiny pajama shorts, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without a single question. I spilled everything between sobs that felt like they belonged to someone else. When there was nothing left, she poured 2 fingers of bourbon, slid the glass across the counter, and asked, Ava, what do you need right now? I need what's mine, I thought, and I need to vanish before he steals it. The next morning, I woke up on Ellie's couch with a mouth that tasted like ashes and a crystal clear plan already taking shape. Ryan had texted twice. Everything okay, babe? You never came home. An hour later, Lauren chimed in. You seemed upset last night. Call me. I stared at the screen until it went dark. I wasn't angry yet. Anger would come later. What I felt was this eerie, metallic calm, like the second before thunder when the air pressure drops so fast your ears pop. Ellie brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. I sat at her kitchen island, laptop open, and started moving money. My parents' trust was built like a fortress. Layers of investments, brokerage accounts, a modest annuity, and the house titled only in my name because Ryan always hated feeling like a visitor. I'd kept everything separate out of habit, never suspicion. That habit was about to become my lifeline. By noon, I'd cashed out whatever I could without huge penalties. By 3, I'd opened a brand new account at a bank I'd never used, routed to Ellie's address. By 6, every joint credit card was canceled and the checking balance transferred to an account with only my name on it. I left exactly $31,247 in the old joint account, just enough for a tank of gas and a tiny, cold reminder. I didn't cry. I kept waiting for tears, but they never came. My body had decided grief was a luxury I couldn't afford yet. That night Ryan actually called. I let it go to voicemail. Ava, seriously, where are you? This isn't funny. Lauren thinks you overheard something and got the wrong idea. Just come home so we can talk. The wrong idea. As if there was a right one. I slept maybe 2 hours. At dawn I packed one duffel, jeans, sweaters, the framed photo of my parents that Ryan always said cluttered the mantle. I left my wedding rings on Ellie's counter beside a note. Thank you for holding me together while I came undone. Then I got in my car and drove north. No destination, just away. Past Denver, past the ski resorts, past anywhere Ryan would ever think to look. I paid cash for gas, kept my phone powered off, and let the Rockies swallow me whole. 3 days later, I ended up in a tiny mountain town where the only traffic light blinks yellow all night long. I sat in a diner that smelled like bacon fat and pine sol and overheard an older couple saying they needed an extra set of hands on their ranch before winter hit hard. They couldn't pay much, the man said, but room and board were included. I looked at my cold coffee, at the faint white line on my ring finger, and thought, I literally have nothing left to lose. I walked over, apologized for listening in, and asked if the job was still open. The man studied me the way ranchers study the sky. Slow, careful, deciding if I was trouble or just blowing through. I must have looked harmless enough because he extended a rough hand and said, Name's Jack. My wife, Ruth. We've got a spare cabin if you're willing to work hard. I shook his hand and told him my name was Ava. I didn't tell him it was the first time in years the name felt like it really belonged to me. The first week on the ranch, my body screamed louder than my heart ever had. I woke before dawn to a cold that snuck under the cabin door like a threat. My palms blistered, then cracked open. My shoulders burned from swinging a fencing maul. Every night I collapsed into the narrow bed, too exhausted to even dream. And still, in the dark, Ryan's voice followed me. 3 times today, babe. 3. I kept waiting for the pain to rise up and swallow me. It never did. It just sat heavy in my gut like a river stone I carried everywhere. Ruth fed me at the main house. Eggs, thick bacon, biscuits that steamed when you tore them apart. She never pried. Just set a plate in front of me and refilled my coffee when it got low. Jack worked me like I'd been born to it, pointing out rotten posts, teaching me how to read the land for where cattle would drift. Their son Cole was away helping a neighbor brand calves. I was grateful, no one my age staring too close. One afternoon the wind ripped down off the peaks hard enough to rattle the barn roof. I was alone, fighting a roll of barbed wire that felt alive and mean. My right glove tore clean open, and the wire sliced across my palm. Blood welled bright against the rust. I stood there watching it drip onto the dirt, and something inside me finally broke. I slid down a fence post and cried. Ugly, tearing sobs that sounded like a wounded animal. I cried for the girl who once believed love was a promise you kept. I cried for every night I lay awake next to Ryan wondering why I wasn't enough. I cried because my parents were gone and the one person I'd let in after them had weighed my value in dollars and decided it spent easy. When the storm inside me passed, the cut had already stopped bleeding. I wrapped it in the bandana from my pocket, stood up, and went back to work. The wire didn't feel so heavy anymore. That night Ruth found me on the cabin steps staring at nothing. She sat beside me without asking and handed me a mug that smelled like honey and whiskey. You're carrying a heavy load for someone so quiet, she said. I laughed, a rough gravel sound. I'm not quiet. I'm just finished talking to people who never listened. She nodded like that was the most reasonable thing she'd heard all week. Some pain doesn't need words. It just needs time and honest work. I sipped the drink and felt warmth burn all the way down. I keep thinking I should be furious, I said. Instead, I just feel hollow. Hollow can be useful, Ruth replied. Means there's space for something new to take root. I didn't believe her yet, but I wanted to. A few days later, Cole came home. I saw him first from a distance, tall, dark-haired, moving across the pasture with quiet confidence that didn't need to announce itself. That evening, he walked into the barn and stopped dead when he saw me wrestling a saddle that weighed almost as much as I did. "Here," he said, voice low, lifting it from my hands like it was nothing. Up close, his eyes were the color of storm clouds over fresh snow. "Dad said we had help. Didn't say it was someone half my size who looks ready to cry over tack." "I'm not crying," I muttered. "Didn't say you were." He hung the saddle, glanced at my bandaged hand. "You eat yet?" I shook my head. "Come on, then. Mom will skin me if I let you starve." At supper, he sat across from me and let the silence be comfortable. When I passed the potatoes, our fingers brushed, and he didn't make it weird. After dinner, he walked me the 100 yards back to my cabin, even though I didn't need it. At the door, he stopped. "Whatever you're running from," he said, "it only gets to follow you here if you keep carrying it. And you look strong enough to put it down." I wanted to tell him he had no idea how heavy it was. Instead, I whispered, "Good night, Cole." "Good night, Ava." I shut the door and leaned against it for a long time, feeling that stone inside me shift just a little. Winter finally loosened its grip 1 degree at a time. One morning, the snow pulled back from the south slopes like a retreating tide, and the first brave blades of green poked through the mud. I'd been on the ranch for months. My hands had become something strong and useful, calloused and sure. I still hadn't heard a word from Ryan. Ellie sent one text, "He's losing it." Cops got involved until someone mailed the precinct a photo of you holding last week's newspaper. "He knows you're alive. He also knows every account is bone dry." She ended it with a single fire emoji. I smiled for the first time in weeks. That same afternoon, I rode up to the high pasture to check for strays. Cole came along without asking, the way he'd quietly started doing. We found 3 late calves tangled in willow brush by the creek. While I cut them loose, he kept the anxious mamas calm with just his voice and a slow hand. On the way down, the sky cracked open with cold mountain rain that soaked us in minutes. We ducked into an old line cabin nobody used anymore. Inside smelled like pine sap and stale coffee. Cole got a fire going with 2 matches and some ancient kindling. Rain hammered the tin roof like a drum. He looked at me across the small flame. "Tell me the rest," he said. Not a question. So I did. All of it. The hallway, the numbers, the way Ryan's laugh had turned stranger than any stranger's. The night I fled north with 1 duffel and a heart that felt burned shut. When I finished, the rain was a steady roar. Cole didn't give me pity. He just reached across the space between us, pulled the same blood-stained bandana from my pocket, and gently wiped a streak of mud off my cheek. "I'm glad you left," he said. "And I'm really glad you stayed." Something in my chest unclenched. I leaned forward and kissed him, hard, hungry, tasting rain and wood smoke and months of holding myself together with nothing but pure spite. We didn't make it back to the ranch until full dark. The next morning, Ruth took one look at us strolling in late for breakfast. Hair still damp, same clothes as yesterday, and simply poured 2 extra cups of coffee without a word. A week later, the divorce papers showed up at Ellie's address. Ryan had finally hired a shark. The demand was vicious: half the trust, the house, alimony. I read it once, folded it into a tiny square, and fed it to the cook stove. I called the attorney I'd hired months earlier. Quiet, expensive, ruthless. "Tell him he gets $50,000 and nothing else," I said. "He signs by Friday or I vanish again, this time for good, and he can spend the rest of his life chasing a ghost." Friday came and went. The signed papers arrived Monday along with a check I immediately endorsed over to a women's shelter back in Fort Collins. That night, Cole found me on the porch steps staring at a sky full of stars. "It's done," I said. He sat beside me, shoulder to shoulder. "You okay?" I thought about it, really thought. "I'm not the woman he threw away anymore," I said. "I'm the one who walked out owning everything that actually matters." Cole took my hand, turned it palm up, traced the pale scar like he was reading my future in it. "Good," he said, "because I'm in love with the woman who stayed." I turned to him, pressed my forehead to his, and for the first time in almost a year, I cried the kind of tears that only come when the fight is finally over. Spring arrived for real the year I turned 35. The high meadows turned electric lime, and the creek ran loud enough to drown any lingering ghosts. I never went back to the city. The little brick house with the navy shutters sold to a young couple who painted them sunshine yellow and filled the rooms with kids' laughter. I signed the closing papers from the ranch kitchen table while Ruth baked cinnamon rolls and pretended not to notice my hand shaking just once. Ryan got his 50 grand. Last I heard, Claire bailed the second the money dried up, and he was waiting tables at a strip mall barbecue place, telling anyone who'd listen that his ex robbed him blind. Some endings really do write themselves. I kept the trust, but I stopped measuring my life by the balance. Now I measure it in mornings, waking before dawn next to Cole. In the way Jack now asks my opinion on pasture rotation like it's the most natural thing. In Ruth's quiet smile when she catches us holding hands over breakfast dishes. We built a small vet clinic on the lower pasture, cinder block and honest pine, where Cole's sister drives up from vet school on weekends to help. On Saturdays, I still ride fence with Jack. Only now it's our fence because last fall Cole and I bought the 40 acres that border the ranch to the north. Nothing fancy, just enough room for the house we drew up together. Wide porch, huge windows, a kitchen island long enough for 3 generations to lean on someday. We got married in June under the cottonwoods by the creek. I walked myself down the aisle because there was no one left to give me away, and that felt perfect. Ruth wore the same blue dress she married Jack in 40 years earlier. Jack cried during the vows. Ellie flew in, toasted me with champagne and happy tears, and whispered, "You saved yourself, Ava." The rest was just living. At night, Cole and I lie in the bed we built from lodgepole pine and listen to the quiet we fought for. Sometimes I still reach for the finger where a ring used to be and find only warm skin and his hand laced through mine. I thought losing everything would destroy me. Turns out it was the first time I ever had enough space to become whole. Sometimes when the wind moves through the aspens just right, I swear I hear my mom laughing in the leaves. I think she loves the woman I've become, scarred palms, steady heart, brave enough to love again. I kept walking until the road ran out of ways to hurt me. And somewhere along the path, I discovered home wasn't a place I could lose. It was the quiet space I finally built inside myself and the people strong enough to meet me there. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Every story reminds us that strength often wears the mask of heartbreak. If this one moved you, stick around. We've got so many more truths of the heart to uncover together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so these stories can reach the people who need them most. See you in the next one.